First of all, thanks guys for coming in. Look, it's many years ago I met Michael Silk on bogs, I'd say 15 or 20 years ago, and designations. Liam spoke there about this committee. I'm going to give you a few straight truths. You know, there's no point in we waffling and saying we're great people. The first thing is that Shannon wasn't drained in 100 years. And to be honest about it, the ground that's beside it in Year Callows at the moment, if the nature restoration law goes through in its present form, in 10 or 15 years, what we were doing 20 years ago, Michael Silk and myself, fighting on bogs, you'll be fighting to try and keep your land. That's the facts of it. There's no point in waffling to you. Because if the nature restoration law that's been voted on, and all our MEPs are backing it, goes through in Europe, peaty type soil, which is up round your area, will be in trouble. And there's no point in saying any different. Second of all, how many ministers have we down through the years? I think Boxer was the only minister that actually got diggers into the Shannon, and they had to come out with fairly rapid because there was going to be injunctions and there was going to be everything thrown at them because of one thing called the Habitats Directive. And unless the Habitats Directive is addressed and regulation with it and the simplicity to walk into court and injunct everything, unless that's addressed, there's no point in we promising ye the sun, moon and stars. Second of all, we're an agricultural committee, but we're not over environmental law. And what's happening on the Shannon and on the Little Brosna's blocked, isn't that right, with peat, and the rivers of Ireland are blocked because, look at, I'm able to drive a digger, but Jesus, I know how to do rivers. And the rivers of Ireland haven't been cleaned, and I'm looking at telly and at people on about flooding and flooding and flooding. And yeah, in low areas you need flood barriers. But if you haven't a way for water to go, you're in trouble. And if there's 2 foot of muck below on the bottom of a river, well obviously and a lot of water comes, it's going to be 2 foot higher. It makes common sense. And unless, I'm actually bringing it up next week in the leaders' questions, because politicians are on about it now. Michael Silk can tell you for the last, since 2004 or 5 I met it, and you were at it long before that, and they're on about doing this and doing that. There's one problem: the Habitats Directive is stifling this country no matter where you go. And what minister? We've heard all promises, but in fairness to ministers, their hands are tied because they'll be injuncted. Have a look at Loch Finchina below on Roscommon. Yeah. Have a look at the height of water at the moment, and a pipe within 200 metres is being done and they cannot put the bucket into the ground. So we're caught in ropes with European legislation. And unless ministerial orders and agreements is got in Europe, because the problem is, guys, the definition under the Habitats Directive of emergency is that it's continuous. They were able to use the jet engines that we put in because we could run out of electricity any time of the year. That was used under the Habitats Directive as an emergency. But unfortunately, and I know you might say fortunately, at least the water goes down sometime. So then it's not an emergency the next day. And that's the definition of it under ECJ and the lot. And politicians can promise you the sun, moon and stars, but I'm just being straight up with you, that unless the Habitats Directive is addressed, unless politicians wake up to the nature restoration law, because it's going to affect every part of the west of Ireland and Offaly and a lot of parts of the Midlands. People don't realise. You saw the day, Michael, that we were told that if you had a hopper, the turf cutting thing didn't affect you. Is that right or wrong? And what happened 10 years later? There was helicopters and gears going around the bogs. And I'm just telling people straight out here that unless this is done and done properly, we welcome the money. But you know what? As Liam has said, money doesn't solve a problem. Actions do. And unless the areas are basically, unless you won't stop all flooding, and that no one said they will, but you can help in a lot of situations. Some of you are probably in the scheme with the national parks for making the area a better place or whatever. And I bet you all the wildlife, and you talked about it before, Michael, they're disappeared, they're gone. So we welcome the bits that has came. We don't know what has came. if we're honest, because I don't know all the ins and outs of it, because the nitty-gritty and the small print isn't out there yet. And do we know if the suck is in it? Do we know if the little brosna is in it? Because the number of people referred to is like 200 and something. That would tell you that should be along the Shannon Callows, going down towards Rooski and going down along the Callows right down along. But I don't think, from everything I'm seeing in figures, maybe I'm wrong and I hope I am wrong, and it would be great if the minister clarifies it, that the likes of the brosna, the suck, because when the Shannon is full, and when it's gone out in your land, the suck is full, and it's gone out in someone else's land. It just back round that league, it's down round, it's in Ballinasloe, it's at Ballyford and everywhere along. And I think everyone welcomes the money. There's no point in saying we don't welcome the money. And it's great that that piece of it has came. But to make sure that the other people are looked at, that it's out to the other people. But I think we have a bigger issue. In fairness, a minister can throw money at something, and they're giving money towards it. We have to, come in that. But we have a bigger problem. It's not alone in where ye are. Go down and look at Middleton, look at Lochfincham, look at Kylemore, look at right around this country. If it's an aeroplane you're trying to put in there, if it's a road you're trying to build, if it's a boat you're trying to bring in, if it's a house you're trying to build, we're just caught up in red tape. And unless that's addressed, the Habitats Directive, we will never get it. And we're years at it. And I think the only thing that I can say is that someone might finally cop on that we're getting a lot of rain, and that no one said we're not. And someone might finally cop on that, because we better do something here, because this isn't working out. But there's a problem that some people would rather to see your land flooded and be telling you that you're carbon farming and that you could put water buffaloes on it, than actually have cattle or sheep on it, and that's it. And I'm not going to go promising you anything.
I raised this at all, as Mr. Broderick said 2 weeks ago, and the answer I got from the minister to answer me was, we'll make floodplains.
Yeah.
That was the answer.
That's my point exactly. Claire, look,
He should be the minister.
But let us know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
We can't.
I'm sure everyone sees it.
For our youngsters' future.
Yeah.
Let us know that they're going to do it. Like it was done this year, and no one told us.
Chairman, can I just come back on Michael's point there about the Habitats Directive? The Habitats Directive, and I worked on that, and Michael has alluded to it, from its very inception. I was landed with this ball of you-know-what when I was involved in AFA, and I dealt with it for nearly 10 years. And it was a tough business to be in, I can tell you that. But the Habitats Directive was there effectively to protect the habitats, protect the wildlife that was on those habitats. We had the finest habitat, one of them, I'd say, in Europe, in the Shannon Callows. We had, but we don't have it today. We killed the corncrake because we flooded them out of it. And I can go back to 2002, and I live on the Shannon literally myself. I have an island in the Shannon, I'm in it every day. But I remember going up in the boat to herd the cattle, and the corncrakes were flying out of the meadowlands, because that's where they nest. They don't nest where there's grazing cattle. And they were flying up and down the Shannon in a totally disorientated manner. And their chicks were floating down in their little nests down beside me in the boat. That's how serious it was. And we're talking about the Habitats Directive today. We have the wading bird population, which is almost decimated in the Shannon Callows because of summer flooding. And we're going to lose all of that, every bit of it, if we don't tackle the flooding.
You're right in what you're saying, but the law is an ass at the moment, to be quite frank about it, for the simple reason, Michael, you're losing all that habitat. But someone trying to put a machine or a dredger or whatever into it, I think something like 12 weeks is the most window you'll have. And the paperwork that they have to go through, and there's a place down there called the Forecourts, and people love going into it. And the ECJ judgments that has been done, social and economic seems to be gone. It's just straitjacket stuff. And until someone gets to Europe and gets this to cop on and defines what emergency is, that's where I think our problem is. And you're 100% right in what you're saying. What the do-gooders have actually been responsible now for their own, for basically all the different vegetation and birds types being killed, getting drowned in what you were after saying.
Absolutely.
Okay, so